Hey everyone, and welcome to a super exclusive Planet Coaster 2 video. I actually played a lot of it at Gamescom this year, and I will go you through 12 topics to give you all the new stuff you want to hear. We are starting with my overall impressions, go over to pathing, talk about the engine briefly, about the guest, rides, the coaster and coaster builder itself, stuff like switch tracks, then we are talking about the weather and seasons. I have some surprises for you. Then we talk about slides and pools, the UI, and finally about some left out stuff. Speaking of left out stuff, you may notice that there is no footage in the background. This is because Frontier decided to not allow any more footage from Gamescom. This kind of went over the top yesterday, so no bad blood. Actually, it was fine for me to stream for a moment, but we decided and agreed to not show anything. So there is stuff out there, but I'm intentionally not showing it because I agreed with Frontier to not do it, and there will soon be official stuff out there. So we do a little bit of trust me bro, okay? But as you most of you have been during the live stream, you know that this is legit. So let's start with the overall impression I had, and I will put some booth images and stuff in this video so you actually have the feeling to be at Gamescom. Now, the game ran very smoothly, very nice, more smooth than I've ever experienced any Planet game run. It was super well optimized for this intention, and also the quality of life updates they've done with some shortcuts and, you know, placing down objects and so on, they worked very, very nice. You can't put that in specific points, you have to play a game to understand if it's well working, and it does. And so this is a big point for a lot of people, performance and so on, and yes, it was great. I actually don't know the system it was running on. It was on PC, but I don't know how beefy the computer was, so I can't really tell you, but it was really good. So that's a pretty good point. Now let's quickly talk about pathing. We all have been blown away by it, and now actually using it myself, oh my god, this video should not go crazy, so let me just tell you, it is all our dreams come true. There is legit nothing you can't do. And I want to speak about one thing we haven't seen, and I tested a lot about, and this is raised paths. So first things first, which a lot of you will love to hear, stairs are an actual feature. You can actually do stairs. So the stairs you see with the, you know, in the trailer and also everywhere, they are path elements. You can choose to do actual stairs. But next to stairs, you can also do raised and lowered kind of inclines and ramps. And this is very nice because now you can seamlessly do them by just holding down shift and then drag your mouse up and down, you'll do a wonderful slope. And because there is no length limit anymore, you can basically drag it as long and wide and short as you want to. The shorter you get, it still becomes an actual staircase, and the wider you get, it becomes a wonderful slope. And you can do this with terrain, follow the terrain, and then the terrain will actually follow, which is again super, super nice. Honestly, everything I tried with the stamp tool, with putting things into the path, you cannot imagine. And last but not least, they actually implemented smoothing paths as an actual feature. We do have a smooth option for pathing, and this legit does exactly what we always did with our cheat code. So you can feel that there are tiny leftovers from the old pathing, but honestly, it's just more like a little, you know, nice notch to the old one. It's completely reworked. It feels incredibly stable. You know, whether it's raised or not, you can also do plazas on a raised area, and you can also get rid of the curb later on. It was a grayed out option, but there is an option to get rid of the curbs, and you know, you can mix and match all the different railings with every pattern, with every curb, which is again super nice. And you can also change everything later on by just having you kind of get a brush, and then if you choose what material you want to have, you can quickly just brush over all the areas you want to change. So you quickly go from a Western styled ground to a modern styled ground. Super, super nice. The next one is a quick one. People have been starting to rumor if the game may actually be on a different engine because the Cobra engine logo was gone from all the material, but that's just maybe a decision that they didn't want to put it everywhere. Adam actually confirmed to me that this game is running on Cobra engine and there's no hide and seek or so. It is confirmed. It's running on the latest version of Cobra engine. Easy peasy, here you got it. And let's move on. Number 4, our guest, and I needed to introduce this to this list because I was able to actually sit down for a minute or two and just watch the guest. Now, I was hoping that the guest may actually be accurately done with like gravity on rides, but that's not the case, so you won't have all their legs and arms flying around like crazy, but they have a lot of new animations also on the rides. It's looking super cool how they're shaking in the ride. There's a lot different hands up and down, so it doesn't feel like copy-paste like in the first game. There's a lot of difference in that, and the people look so much better. You cannot even believe. Like in game, it was a lot more than we've seen actually in the gameplay. Not sure if this was a little bit of a better version, but there were also, it's so much more crowded. You've got so many more guests in the park, and it looks really believable. So that is very good to know. And they just look a huge bit better, and they have so much more details, like earrings, piercings, and necklaces, and like this is something you don't notice at first, but once you notice, you can't unsee how much this adds to the game. Number 5 is definitely something you all wanted to hear, rides. And there were a couple of surprises in there, and I want to quickly start with some transport rides, because you guys also wanted to see. There was a tiny weird bug in there, which I found funny. Under the transport rides, there was the log flume for whatever reason, but we'll talk about the log flume in a bit. However, there was also a bus ride, which is super cool. It wasn't the bus ride we got in the Studios pack back then. It was an actual bus like you have from a hotel to go somewhere. You can definitely tell Frontier learned their lesson, and we will be able to abuse this bus ride as we did in the past, but this looks like a legit bus, and it's a transport ride, so you can grab them from the spawners and bring them to your actual entrance of the park. That's gonna work, so super nice. And we have our good old lovely steam train is back in the game as well, but I was told that this is just a tiny showcase of what's gonna come, so I'm not sure what else will be in there, but the section of the ride is in. Then we also have a lot of different rides in the flat ride section. There was a couple of things grayed out, so maybe tracked rides, because people were talking about that this too, have just been grayed out, but they will be in, so at least this icon looked like this. I wasn't able to check every single bit because there was just so much to see, but we have a couple of flat rides, and also their little Ferris wheel is back in, which was the whirlywig in the first game, but now we have it as an unthemed option, just so you know. But there will be more in the game, but it's super, like the customization of them it's ridiculous. I tried it, it functions super well, the animation is in, the mirroring option is great, like it's all super nice, and there's a wide choice of rides already, which you'll be very happy with. Now, thanks for watching this video until now. I guess most of you skipped to this point now, because we're talking about coasters, my friends. This game is called Planet Coaster, and maybe let's start with a tiny bummer, but the coaster builder is literally the same. However, and I want to mention this with a lot of empathy and caution, it may look the same and feel the same building it, like you have the same controls, and it's also piece by piece, and it seemed like that the shortest piece still is 4 meters. However, I plopped down a quick coaster, and I did it a couple of times, and it was immediately relatively smooth. It was actually so smooth that it was already smoother than any ride I've ever done in Planet Coaster 1, including smoothing. There are a couple of new smoothing options though, so you can choose different types of smoothing, so only, like it is a bit similar to how it was in the first game, but now it's finally done in a proper way. So you have smoothing only for the curve, for the banking, or for the overall rotation of the curve, then, or for the size of the curve, for example. Then you can decide to smooth forward and backward. So if you are familiar with certain mods of the game, you know there was the 4-meter method to go forth and back over your pieces twice, and you need to do that throughout the whole course of the coaster, and there was a mod that did this automatically with some hotkeys and stuff like that. Now this is a feature in game. You can just choose to smooth forward, and then the game automatically will always go 1 selection point forward. So let's say if you've selected 4 pieces, for example, and you hit smooth, the next time it's gonna go exactly 4 pieces further into the coaster layout, so that's the last piece is left out, and so you keep on smoothing the ride, and it functions a tremendous amount better than in the first game. I was easily able to put down a nice roll, and it looked a lot better. The offset is working a lot better, so people, I guess, will be pleased with it, and I really enjoyed plopping down a coaster a lot, because it felt so much more rewarding to jump on it and have a look. But there's really not that much more I can tell you about, because there are so many items in the game. and in the menu, that it was really hard to focus on them. You can imagine that obviously the typical things are in, like push tires, launches, and all these, you know, normal things you would expect are in game already, so no big deal. But yeah, that's that. Now let's talk about the next point, which is Switch tracks, and I included this as a point to tell you they're not in. Seems weird, right? I know. However, this doesn't mean they won't be in at all. I found a couple of things in game that do hint to the fact that they may be in a certain way, if it's an actual one. But the stations pretty much are not touched at all. I'm not sure if that remains the same, but there's literally nothing you can do with the stations, and it seems to be not the final version anyways, because I wasn't able to put a single rider lane in. The single rider lane wasn't existing, but we know it does exist because it literally was already in the footage that we've seen. So that's definitely something that wasn't in at all, which tells me there are more options that exist, but they are not even in this build. And even Frontier confirmed to me that this was a very old build to ensure that this is well optimized for Gamescom. So there's a lot more to come. However, which I do think is pretty good, there are, again, as I said, a lot of hints. There was an option in the menu to add a coaster while the ride was operating, which is something that didn't work in the first game, and for me it did not work. Like, I tried it and I thought, okay, maybe there are too little block sections, but the coaster had enough block sections and I couldn't add a ride. So maybe they forgot to take out that button, and it's not confirmed, okay? This is a little guessing here because they wouldn't confirm that to me. But as this button didn't do anything, and we have some other things we are talking about in a minute that were super surprising, and in the chapter surprising you'll know what I talk about, then you will actually find that this is going to be maybe in. There is a good evidence to why. Anyways, let's talk about my most exciting point now, which is weather/seasons, because the brand new weather panel is very similar to a forecast. So you have a forecast for the current day. Every single hour is kind of displayed, and you will get the forecast of weather for the next hours. Why hours? Because the time in this game is now completely changed. The 15-minute demo I had actually only was an in-game hour. So that means the in-game hour passing, you can actually tell that, for example, in the afternoon, if it's raining, things may actually be influenced by that. And this is very interesting because next to the forecast for the next hours, you got the next day and the next month as a forecast as well, which gives you more control over what's happening. And there were literally seasons mentioned below. Like, I have been playing in January, which is winter, or like it was February, I guess, and that it's winter, and then for March it told me spring approaching, which is insane. This is more than I was ever dreaming for. By the way, weather wasn't, like, it was in, but it was grayed out. I couldn't use the option to change weather. I couldn't even put it in nighttime. They have sneakily actually hidden a lot of things away, which I'm a little bit mad about, but hey, I mean, it was obvious that they needed to do that. But this was so good to see. Like, weather is completely integrated as more than just it's sunny, it's overcast, it's rainy, I don't know. It seems to have a real impact, because you would not put this entire, very nicely designed, by the way, screen in with like weather forecast. There was even like a little exclamation mark saying that it's very hot, which I assume is for higher frequency of sunscreen, for example, or more shades available, I don't know. But this was, for me personally, absolutely surprising to see. I did not expect that to be a thing, but that's a good segue into my next point. Because there are a lot of surprises in there, and I was lucky enough to be invited to an event after the Gamescom where I still had time to play for a bit, and I had a bit more, you know, it was a bit more quiet, so I could sit down and play a bit. And I found a people dryer. Yes, you know, when you're on a water ride and you're completely soaked, you want to dry quickly, there was a dryer. And you know why this is interesting? Because a dryer is necessary specifically for those seasons where it's not super hot but still warm enough to go on these things. But then again, you get a cold if you do not, you know, dry out quickly enough. So no one, if like 35 degrees summer, no one would use the dryer. But if there is like, you know, let's say we've got spring and there's already like a very nice sunny day which gets to like 25-ish degrees in the sun, you would enjoy a water ride, but then if you go into the shadows, or maybe it's getting afternoon, you drop below 20 degrees, that's maybe not the best situation to be fully soaked. So very interesting. Then we had a lot of new stuff for the energy and water management. So my friends, we actually need to build pipes and cables. So it's not just plopping down a water filtration system or like an energy system. No, we need a transformer, we need the energy supply, we need also what was that, kind of a tool to enlarge the radius of energy, and then you need to put down cables to actually connect the rides or even facilities with each other. So you get these little dots. It very much functions like in City Skylines, to be honest. Like the pipes literally work the exact same way. So you have like a water tower, and then you connect the water tower to a facility that requires water, and you need to connect a filtration system to the pools, for example. So they require water and filtration, which are two separated items, which for me personally was super impressive to see, because I did not expect this to be that deep in the game. So I'm very hopeful that this has an actual impact on the gameplay. I'm very hopeful for everyone out there, because you know, I'm not the biggest management player, but I always said that this needs to be a better focus. So I was worried about these things, but now I'm a lot more positively surprised that this has kind of a real meaning in there. So that was definitely a good surprise to be seen. And also, a very good surprise to be seen is that it seems like we are getting actually a scenery brush, my friends. Because people have been seeing the icon scenery brush. This is not a secret anymore. However, a lot of people told me that the scenery brush will most likely be terrain only. I can guarantee you now it's not, because I did work with terrain. There's no need to mention anything about terrain, by the way. It's literally the same, but why fix a working system? It was already amazing. The only difference is that we do now get 17 textures. That is so cool. Remember, we only had 6 in the past. Now we get 17 textures. That is ridiculous, and I love it. But we also get a scenery brush. This thing was grayed out, but as the different scenery items, like foliage and stuff that are already in the game, I have found to be in very interesting order. That was, yeah, very interesting to see. So you know, at this point, I really do think we get a scenery brush, which honestly is one of the bigger surprises for this game, for me personally. Now, the last surprise I want to talk about is something that will be good for a lot of people who have actually not believed that we are going to get full scaling, or group scaling, I should say. But now I can confirm to you, you can group scale objects. And Frontier, please do not listen at this point. You can abuse the system like in almost any other game. So if you scale a piece down to their lowest or to the highest, and then you create a group out of them, and you scale down the group, it's getting even more smaller. The only little issue is you can't then you know, scale them again, because the moment you click on them to scale, it plops back into its recent smallest option. But you can still, if you have an item that is done, you do create a group out of it, and you want to even smaller, you can just select the whole group and scale it smaller, unless it's using a grid piece. As always, you need to use non-grid pieces. So that is a very nice surprise over here. So very much appreciated that. Now we talk about slides and pools. This is something you will all go nuts about. There are wonderful kind of splash zones, and we even have different options for a splash zone. That is very nice. You can either splash into the pool, or you have dedicated splash zones with different heights, so that your whatever slide is ending with a splash zone, and then people will actually end in that splash zone, and that can actually end anywhere. It can end in, like, even in the woods if you want to, or on a higher ground, whatever. It doesn't matter. You can put it literally anywhere, which is super cool. I didn't build too many tubes or so. I saw that other people did this, and I checked out a couple of these elements. We will see more elements in the future anyway, so no big surprises for me. The most important thing was, is there an option, because you guys all ask for that, if there is a runoff area for them, basically. And yes, there is a dedicated splash zone / runoff area if you want to. So that is super cool. Also, like the entrance on top of this is also, you need to build like a platform, and then on the platform you click start to build build this the tube, which is super cool. I mean, most of you may have seen this anywhere else on the internet. But yeah, so that is a very cool thing. And plopping down pools is equally rewarding as doing the pathing, because it literally works the exact same way. You just draw your pool if you fancy doing so, and you just decide how deep it should be. And we've got 3 different depth options. They are called swim, idle, and wade, or something like that. So 3 different ones. So the one is where you need to swim, the other one is where you can stand and walk, and the other one is where you actually would need to wade, where you're, you know, semi put into the water. So that is very nice. There's really not that much more to talk about, because we've already seen so much about pools that there is no big surprise in other than the one I mentioned. And this is why I want to go over to a bigger point, which is the UI. And the UI is very different. I did not think it is that different, but I really needed to get used to it the full first 15 minutes. And I thought that may be a point where I would need to criticize, but the more I kept playing this day, I noticed it's not. They fixed a lot of issues. Again, as I said, quality of life updates, you can't really pinpoint, you just feel them. And I think the biggest thing is we have the Radial Menu now as a fully baked in version also on PC. For those of you who don't know, the Radial Menu has been introduced to Planet Coaster on console, and it is basically an option that is context aware of what you do and gives you options in a Radial Menu. So let's say you're editing terrain and you hold down, now in this case, now in new case, it's going to be holding down the Alt key. The Radial Menu will appear in front of you, and around your mouse cursor there will be kind of cake slices, and the one will be smoothing and the other one will be push and pull and whatnot. And equally, if you're building a coaster, it's gonna give you different options for different items. This is so much faster. For any one of you who have already built in a 3D program, for example, Blender has that option as well. It is ridiculous. It's the best thing ever. You just need a bit of brain memory, you know, and then you know if you hold down Alt and you push your mouse to the right-hand side, you will actually go to smoothing, or if you put it down low, like bottom down, you're going to chain lift. I don't know. See, this is so good, and it will make building and stuff so much quicker, or copy pasting or whatnot. It's so good. I really loved it. And just in general, I have some gripes about it, but I don't want to judge it because it is not the final version. But the menus became super loaded now because there are so many options, but for the most part I felt they were super intuitive to find. There are now a lot of this might actually be the area where you feel the biggest influence from consoles, because most of the menus have a horizontal slider option. So for example, if you have all the different coaster elements like the brakes and the push tires and stuff like that, they are horizontally, and you always have 4 icons visible, and then you need to click on an arrow to go through to the right hand side. But there's no slider option, so that you can't slide with your mouse or use your mouse wheel to quickly slide through. You actually have to push that little arrow to go through, which I found a bit finicky. And with a controller you can just use the shoulder buttons to quickly, move through the menu. I feel like they have to find a fix for computer to be quicker, or even to make this menu bigger or whatnot, to have quick access to all the options, because at some coasters you have like 12 or 13 or whatever, even more elements to click off, and sometimes you just need to click to the 3rd menu or 4th menu to find that one option you want to go for. That was maybe a little bit of a thing they need to improve about that, but a lot of other things are so much more logical now. So I think the biggest change is you will always be greeted with the blueprint. So when you're opening the facility menu, you will not see any of the of these little modules or so. You will always get final and finished blueprints that you can plop down. And I do love that, because I love it for the casuals. Because if you wanted to build yourself, there's a button on the right hand side which says build anew, and once you click that one, you are greeted with our old menu that only includes the items and the shells, which I think is absolutely the right way to do it, because casual players don't even need to go into that deeper area of the game. They can just plop down their beloved blueprints and have the same. But for us who want to build more precise, there's just one click you need to do and you're back in your menu, which may actually be one click more for us. That's fine, but you don't need to activate anything in the menu. And also, because I talked a little bit to Adam, one thing they are really proud of is that they they reversed actually the action. Now a lot of the hitboxes and stuff are deactivated by default. So you know, in Planet Coaster 1 you also could deactivate all the different you know, how's that called again, not barriers, like if intersections, like if a coaster goes through the pathing, it was blocked, and then you could just say no, I don't want this, and you know, then it was going through. But now it's all default is disabled, and you need to actively enable these things in order to, you know, not be able to build a coaster through your path, for example. I think this is added creativity and freedom that we all needed, and so I'm very happy that they went this way to make it all more accessible and easy to play with. So in general, I was positively surprised by the UI, despite the fact it took me a couple minutes to get used to it. Right, last but not least, we need to talk about the left out stuff, because there was quite a lot that was actively left out that we could even see is left out. And there is one surprise I didn't talk about, and for those of you who listened to this video till this point, you will be rewarded with maybe one of the biggest things, and this is a lift. We do have a lift in the log flume, so the log flume can actually be lifted upwards with an elevator. And you know that drop tracks are also confirmed. People were still having that last bit of concern that maybe Frontier did confuse drop track with like diving, but I'm now 100% sure they didn't, and it didn't feel like they wanted to leave in the elevator, because I can't imagine like that this is such a new piece we've never seen in a game that in a way did not have any counterpart. So why would you specifically use the log flume to have a, you know, to have such a specific element like an elevator, and then you don't have anything special with the coasters? I feel like this is a leftover from a system that will be much bigger with a lot of these switch tracks options. You know, if you can build, for example, Voltron, the new ride in Europa Park, which has this turntable basically where the coasters change from one side to the other going into a nice launch. I can very well imagine that we are going to see these things in the game now, because there is literally this crazy vertical elevator thing, and also there is a turntable, like a not a turntable, it's a turn platform for the log flume, so it goes in and it's rotated once, so it goes backwards. Again, a tool we've never seen in game, and I really think this is great to see. And also, there were a lot of things about, as I said already, the scenery brush, and weather, again, was deactivated, which I do believe that has, like, if you do leave these things out intentionally, it does mean there is more to it than just weather. Because why would you leave out weather if it's just a cosmetic thing again? That makes no sense. I do believe they need the time to talk about that nicely and give us a very nice deep dive of water, of weather and the impact of weather. And I can't wait for that one. So, this is, first of all, this is all about the point. Let me just quickly draw a conclusion about my experience. So that was a lot, and I really hope that you guys found it helpful. I tried to keep it as short as possible, but at some points, because I can't show you something, I need to explain this a bit more, and I'm very tired because I'm doing this right after Gamescom to keep my impression and emotion, but I'm super tired, to be honest. However, I am, again, a tiny fraction more positive, because only a tiny fraction, because I have already been very positive lately about the game after the content reveal, and this was just like a big support of it, and it even added a tiny bit more. Like, there are just a couple of things that I was not able to check because it literally it wasn't in, and that was, for example, pitch black interiors. I literally can't say anything. Obviously, I built a house with no doors and stuff, and there was no pitch black interior whatsoever, but they also said that this is a very old version of the game, so maybe they found a different fix for it. I don't know, but that shouldn't mean that it's not in. I also found a lot of other things in the game that I can't really tell you more about, because it was so confusing what this should be in the future, and I don't want to even guess at this point. So it leaves me with a very positive feeling. And I will say it now. Even if Frontier is going to release the version that I have seen with more content, people would already be absolutely mad about it in the most positive way. And the last bit of concern I had that Frontier went the easy way is gone now, specifically when you talk to the devs. And just to be fair, I will not include anything major that I talked about with the devs, because there were a couple of things that I wanted to trick them into something, and they actually reacted in a very nice way. By the way is just to tell me nothing, but I could now start to guess reactions and stuff, but I won't. I'm just very thankful I was able to talk to them and confirm a lot of things for you guys. I included those things already in this video, so trust me, bro, again, as I told you. All of this I've talked about. If there was anything uncertain, it is confirmed via the devs on the ground. And all the other things that we talked about, more details, I will talk about when we have material to showcase that, because otherwise this is something too much into the guessing area. And I will let you know as soon as we can see something, and also make sure that I have understood this correctly. So big thanks again to Frontier to really giving me so much insight again next to playing the game. It was really lovely to talk to Adam and all the other guys, the other Adam and Kat, and you know, if I forgot someone, Alex. Very nice to see them too. Alex, by the way, is the guy who's always telling the people to not say too much, and I wonder if Alex ever met Sam Denny, and if so, I guess he would have gone crazy. But very lovely to meet all the people, and with that, thank you so much for watching. There's soon going to be more content, guys, and as soon as I have some content at hand, I will obviously talk about this. Hopefully that was interesting to you, and if you've even more questions or you didn't understand something correctly, let me know down below in the comments as always. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.